Mm. Sorry, guys. Good evening. It was trying to take that last minute swig of coffee before we get started. I guess we've started, right? Anyway, wow. So glad you could join me tonight. We've got a very it's I think it's maybe Providence that this particular episode, if you want to call them episodes of Late Night Coffee Talk, falls on Line in the Sand Day. And so I suspect we're going to talk a good bit about that tonight because it is, to me, one of the defining days on the Texian calendar, and we can talk about that. There's a look, if you got any questions about sort of this time of year and how it interrelates with the T&M, go ahead and throw them in the chat. But I get ahead of myself. A quick reminder, let's get things started off right. For those of you joining us for the first time, I'm Daniel Miller, president of the Texas Nationalist movement, and this is Late Night Coffee Talk. This is that time once a week where I take a break out of doing work to advance the cause of Texas independence, to secure Texas independence. I fire up the camera and the microphone, and I open myself up to your questions. On occasion, I have things I want to talk about, but more often than not, it is you and only you that drives the conversation for these. And you can do that in the following ways. You can, if you're watching on YouTube, you can post your question in the chat. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell while you're there. And if you are so inclined, please drop us a super chat. Your contributions are greatly appreciated. So you can drop your question in there. Additionally, you can, if you're watching us on Facebook, you can like and comment and put your question in the comments, and boom, it shows up over here. So that's another way to do it. Additionally, if you're watching us on X, formerly known as Twitter, I cannot wait until I don't have to append that to every time I say X as the platform. But if you're over there, be sure to drop your questions in the chat there as well. And of course, we're streaming on Rumble tonight. We don't have a way to monitor chat. I'm sure it's coming at some point, but it's not tonight. So if you are watching on Rumble or you want to just drop your question, you can email it to that address right there, coffeetalk@vtnm.org. If you didn't catch it, it's Coffee Talk, all one word, at vtnm.org. And they pop over here, and I have a tendency to alternate between what comes in via the various chats on the platforms and your submitted questions via email. So I'm going to tell you, it is March. It's March the 5th. Somebody is literally already spamming the chat over on Facebook. So I'm just laughing because I could see it over here. It's pretty hilarious. Anyway, it is March the 5th. It is the anniversary of the date where Travis, according to the story, drew his famous and iconic line in the sand. And if you follow us on any social media or you're on T&M Social, you have likely been bombarded with things from us. But look, this is a pretty important time for us. I refer to this time period, and I said it during my podcast this week, kind of the high holy days for Texians, right? This is from the jump at the start of the Alamo siege all the way through April 21st. All Texans become just a little more Texan at this time of year. So there are always days to commemorate, and I believe that the entire duration of this period can teach us a lot of lessons. I think it gives us motivation, inspiration. I think there are a lot of life lessons or worldview lessons, if you want to call it that are that can be mined from this time of year. Whether it's what I devoted my entire podcast. If you did not see it, you need to go watch it. But I dedicated the entire Texas News podcast on March the 3rd, specifically to one of the letters that was written from the Alamo. And I did so because I believe, to me, it's a pretty pivotal letter in the entire Alamo story, but in the entire story of Texas. And I'm not going to regurgitate all of that information again, but it was important nonetheless. And I would encourage you to go watch it, or if you're into that sort of thing, or if you subscribe to the podcast on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or any of those other places. But today is one of those days. And as I posted on T&M Social earlier today, for me personally, there's a very deep meaning to this particular day. The day before the Alamo fell, it is that day, as I said, Travis drew the line in the sand, and he gave, he as the story goes, he took everyone out in the courtyard, understanding that they were going to get no help, no reinforcements, no resupply, no nothing. They were just there on their own. And he explained the situation to them fully about the difficulty of it. And knowing that they would surely die, he gave them a couple of options. One was to go over the wall and flee, right? They could probably sneak out beyond through the Mexican lines, because they were able to get couriers out, but he gave them that opportunity to slip out. Or the other option was to do what he was going to do, which was stay and do his duty and give his life up until death in the defense of the garrison. And as you find out, if you watch or listen to the podcast about March the 3rd, that what he had committed himself to was to live unto death for the cause of Texas independence. And he gave them the options. And then, as the story goes, he pulled out his sword and he drew a line in the sand and said those that would stay, and asked those that if they would stay and do their duty, to cross that line in the sand and join him on that side. And as the story goes, everyone crossed. Even Jim Bowie, who was essentially bedridden, was on a cot or a stretcher, and told men to carry him across the line. Now, the legend also says that that someone did escape over the wall. His name is Moses Rose, and we'll be talking more about him tonight, because Moses Rose is, to me, the epitome of the quitter, and the difference, the contrast between how Moses Rose is remembered versus how the Alamo heroes are remembered, I think is quite telling for us. But actually, I have pictures tonight for that when we get ready to talk about it. But for me tonight, it is such a big deal, right? I mean, this day, because it really exemplifies one of those few moments where in your life you're given a true binary choice, path A or path B. So many things in our lives and in our world today are so complex, and there's not just two choices. There's 50, and sometimes you just don't know which way to go. And I think it's proof positive that when you're put in a situation like that, where you're given a binary choice, where the consequences are so high that it really tests your character, right? If you have 50, 60 different choices on which way to go, you have a tendency, you can kind of justify just about any position. But it's really when you get down to those binary choices in life that I think the true test of someone's character, especially when, like I said, the cost for each path is so high. And some people may take exception to that, right? That the characterization that the costs were equally high on both sides. But to those people, honor meant something, right? Standing up for principles meant something. And so if one path is death and then the other is, having to sacrifice your honor and your principles, that for them, that was sort of an equal thing. And many of those people, I mean, I'm not going to say they were equal, because they each had to measure, but you understand that they were sort of equivalents here, right? They had to make a choice: live without honor, and sacrificing your principles and everything you have said you believe in, versus standing up for those principles unto death. And it's a pretty weighty choice. And for me, as I said, this is a pretty important time because it illustrates that one. But the other is I firmly believe that on this issue of independence for all of us, it comes down to that line in the sand moment, right? And I think it's almost a daily choice that we have to make. I know it is for me. I believe that we make that choice daily to sacrifice ourselves for this greater cause, this cause of independence and liberty, or to, I guess you could say proverbially go over the wall and in the hopes that we will outlast whatever calamity is coming down the pike to live out our lives, right? I mean, I really think it gets down to that, and without a doubt, it's a lot of times a very tough choice to make, but it's one that you have to make almost every day when you roll out of the rack and put your feet on the floor. You remind yourself why you do this, why this is so important, why independence is so important. And I got to tell you, folks like me that are this way, that are saying, look, I've crossed the line in the sand. If you begin to understand that this is the way that we look at the world, this is the way we look at the cause of Texas independence, the same way that Travis did. Look, he was prepared to stay by himself. I mean, imagine if no one crossed that line, he was prepared to stay. He was prepared to stay and do his duty by himself. It would have been a short battle, but I think it's, Travis died at the beginning of the final push of the Mexican army on March the 6th anyway. But he was willing to stay and do it by himself because he was not willing on a personal level to sacrifice his honor in just to save his life. I mean, he wasn't going to do it. So, so for those of us who look at the cause of Texas independence in this way, it's very difficult for people outside of that to understand how that is. How do you look at it that way? Well, all we're doing is we're emulating the people who gave everything they could to create the republic in the first place, right? So if you denigrate us, you're denigrating the memory of those people as well. Those people that carved an empire out of a wilderness, who defeated the Napoleon of the West. Now, you cannot denigrate what we do and the way that we look at the world, and yet continue to say that you honor the sacrifice that they made. And so it's why we kind of cock a little bit of an eyebrow when you've got, people who wash out and tap out, quit, and, they want to do the Texas independence hokey pokey. Well, I'm cool with it today, but I'm not cool with it tomorrow. Yeah, we look at them because we're looking at them as though they are the same kind of people as Moses Rose that snuck out, that didn't cross that line in the sand. We're looking for people that are going to stick this thing through. I've said this statistic time and time again, that from the time of the start of the Texas Revolution to the victory at San Jacinto, a full 60% of the people that had joined the Texian army washed out. I don't mean they were casualties of war, right? I mean, they just simply left. They skedaddled, right? And the interesting thing is, when you look at the Texian army muster rolls, it shows their names and shows they deserted. I mean, can you imagine the utter shame of having your name on the Texian muster rolls after the victory in the Texas Revolution, the forming of the nation, and having your name on the roll as somebody who answered the call and said, "Oh, it's tough. I can't believe you want me to do you want me to carry a rifle? You want me to camp outside? I mean, can you imagine the absolute utter shame that one would experience if their name were on those muster rolls and next to it basically said deserted? I mean, wow. I mean, just how horrible. Those are the kind of people in your family tree that you don't really talk about, right? When you tell us about great grandpappy, well, yeah, we really don't know a lot about him. Yeah, he was a bit of a mystery. He was a lot of a coward, though, right? That's how you look at it. So, some people accuse us of being, real hard butts about this stuff. I saw somebody on social media today accuse us of being a cult, and that's not what it is. honoring the sacrifice of your ancestors, of your forebears, the people who built the nation that you're trying to reclaim for them. That's not cult-like behavior. That's just being honoring and holding others to account. It's about accountability. I mean, how could we look at future generations who are, they're going to, I say this, and I hate to be repetitive, and some of you have heard this before, but I mean, don't you just absolutely despise it when you think that history is not going to record, future historians are not going to record a victory for us? Like, can you imagine if a future historian goes, well, they just kind of let it happen. Yeah, Texas was a thing. It's a footnote. Now it's not. It's been absorbed into whatever. Doesn't really exist. I mean, can you imagine just how much, if you were to jump in a time machine and jump forward in time and see that in a history book, just how sick you would feel? Just absolutely how sick you would feel about that. It would devastate me. It would devastate me. But I'm gonna work so that future generations will remember what we do here, and they'll do so in a free, independent, self-governing, independent nation. That's what I'm going to do. So anyway, look, I will just show you a phenomenal, here's the contrast. I mean, I want you to think about this, right? So when we think about honoring the Alamo defenders, right? We, in the TNM, once a month, second Saturday of every month, we go lay a wreath at the door of the Alamo Chapel. And our guys walk right past this, the cenotaph, the empty tomb with the names chiseled on there of the Alamo defenders, those who were martyrs that gave their lives in the cause of Texas independence. And they're honored. Sure, there's oblivious tourists that walk through there. And sure, the people of the city of San Antonio, the officials there have done everything they can to minimize this over the past couple of generations, but thousands of people flock to that site to honor the sacrifice those people made. Now imagine if you were this poor sucker right here, Mr. Go Over the Wall, right? Moses Rose. Here's a stone that the Boy Scouts had to put up for the guy, right? He's buried, and you'll see the credit to this is for Mac Duncan. He was over there. He was told that this is where Moses Rose was buried, and so he went over there and he snapped a picture and sent it to me. Just to show, there the guy is. I'm not going to tell you what I told Mac. That's between you and I. I have some questions for him. But you understand that this is the difference. I mean, this guy was effectively unremarked, right? He was just effectively only known as sort of a legend, right? Somebody that we kind of think about and go, ha ha. But I mean, can you imagine this poor sucker? That the Boy Scouts, you can see I think it looks like the little Boy Scout logo down there. I can't tell. Maybe it's the, state of Louisiana. I have no clue. But this guy's buried in Louisiana, and they had the gall to put on his headstone, Soldier of the Alamo. Well, granted, he stayed for some days for the duration of the siege, right? Which meant that he underwent. But at the end of the day, at crunch time, when it really mattered, he tucked tail and he ran. And now he has some charity stone put up by the Boy Scouts versus the cenotaph at the Alamo battlefield, and having the cry of "Remember the Alamo" on the lips of the Texian army as they crossed the field at San Jacinto and won our independence and defeated the Mexican army. What a contrast, right? I'm telling you, I will never be Moses Rose. That's not me at all. And here's the deal: I'm not in it for a fancy headstone. I don't care if I am unremarked, as long as we win. As long as we win and we restore Texas independence, and that is the gift I can hand to my children and their children and on and on and on. I don't care what you guys do with me. I don't care if there's a headstone, a reminder. I don't care about any of that. That stuff is completely irrelevant to me. What is relevant is that we honor the sacrifice those people made and that we win. And for that to happen, it's important for each of us to commemorate this day as it is, that line in the sand day, that day that we make our decision, so that we commit not once a year, but every single solitary day to crossing that line in the sand and making that decision. Some people are going to say, man, that's just too hard. Well, tough. There is not a single thing that you are going to endure in this that hasn't been endured by those people that defended the Alamo, or the people that marched in the Texian army, or those that were slaughtered at Goliad, or those that hoisted the come and take it flag. There's not a single thing that you're going to be exposed to that's going to be any worse than what they had to deal with. In fact, it would be infinitely better. Those people in that day wish it was as easy as it is right now. They wish it was as easy, right? But remember, every single day, treat it like March the 5th. Treat it like your line in the sand day. You know, I refer to August 24th, 1996 as my line in the sand day. That was my day of decision. What was your day of decision? What was your initial day of decision? And then each day, do you recommit to that decision? Or does it just get too tough, too hard? Oh, you mean you want me to check my email? Oh, you don't have to endure what they had to endure. And you should thank the Almighty for that. But at the end of the day, when you make your decision, that means you got to get to the wall and do your duty. You have to go out there and fight the fight. It's not enough just to cross the line in the sand and have the camaraderie and everything else that goes along with it and the feel goods at the time. That means that you have to endure until the end, till we win, or until, as I say often, till the grave digger pat you in the face with a shovel, whichever comes first. That's what winning looks like. All right. Well, let's get to some questions. Oh boy, this is going to be fun. Okay. Let's start in the chat here. This is from the Crunch Bite. Are you looking forward to a day where idiots like Al Green no longer have any relevance, Daniel? Yes. Yes. And any of you who don't know, Al Green is the congressman from Houston that got kicked out of the Trump's joint session of Congress last night. And it's Al Green. Al Green's going Al Green. It's what he does. And, you know, he's like cut from that same cloth as the Sheila Jackson Lees of the world and some of these other nitwits, Jasmine Crockett, some of these others. You know, just, they're poor representatives of Texas. They perhaps represent their constituencies. I mean, I don't know. Somebody elected them. Somebody voted for them. But at the end of the day, I'm definitely looking forward to where I don't have to worry about anything federal, right? You don't like your congressman, then you should definitely support Texas independence, because and then look, don't at me over the Texas House. We'll have that conversation as well. But you know, I'm definitely looking forward to not having to think about a single thing related to the federal government ever again. All right, let's take one from email. Okay, this is from Paul. Paul asks, currently the Texas Constitution states eligibility to be governor and lieutenant governor are being a citizen of the United States, not necessarily a natural-born Texan, and a residence requirement. Should the Republic of Texas change the eligibility to state that the president and vice president of Texas be natural-born citizens with longer resident status, and legislative lawmakers also be natural-born citizens of Texas with longer residence requirements? That is a really kind of a post-Texit question, Paul. And you know, when we talk about the four stages, the four things that we have to address post-referendum, when we talk about constitutional changes, statutory changes, international covenants, treaties, and agreements, and then finally negotiated issues, that is in the constitutional aspects of it, because it's not even, for that one, it's not even simply just about changing the titles, from governor to president or lieutenant governor to vice president. it's an opportunity to take a look at that, because the qualifications are going to have to be set, because we don't need anything related to United States citizenship in our Constitution. So definitely something that is going to have to be done beyond a shadow of a doubt. So anyway, thank you for that question. Let's go take another one from the chat. Oh, by the way, if you're just joining us, be sure to, whatever platform you're watching this, drop your questions in the chat or the comments. For YouTube, it's got to be the chat. For Facebook, it's got to be the comments. For X, it has to be in the chat. And for Rumble, we can't see them. So I have no idea, because there is no connection between, although we're sending out on Rumble, it doesn't show up over here. So be sure to drop them in there, because I've got quite a few via email, and you guys are sputtering out a little bit over here in chat. Kind of hurts my heart a little bit. Okay, here we go. Sam asks, he says, Daniel, how about a short video clip regarding Trump's comments about Greenland for use by the online response team and general posting? So fun thing is, we actually have the clip, and if you don't know what Sam is talking about, let me give you a little refresher.
And I also have a message tonight for the incredible people of Greenland. We strongly support your right to determine your own future.
That's kind of a big deal. If you don't know what happened there during Trump's joint address, or his address to the joint session of Congress last night, he essentially reinforced Greenland's right to self-determination, of course, then with an invitation to become a state of the United States, or a territory. I mean, he's basically saying, you have a right, if you would like, to withdraw from Denmark, period. And while you're at it, you have if you would like to join us, the invitation is there, right? So that, we posted that clip on social media today, and I literally, we had this nitwit get on there and say, I'm not gonna lie, I think it's funny that an organization that wants Texas to leave the union is supporting the addition of other states. It's like, dude, number one, did you not hear what he said? Number two, read the room, right? We're not out here touting an expansion of the United States. We're out here taking the statement that he said, which was an explicit, I guess you could call it an explicit restatement or reinforcement, or I don't know what the right word is, because I'm honestly, I'm flabbergasted. He explicitly stated the support, the official position of the United States federal government is Greenland has a right to self-determination, right? They can determine their future. Let's just play that again for you.
And I also have a message tonight for the incredible people of Greenland. We strongly support your right to determine your own future.
That's self-determination. That's a big deal. And if you want a little more insight into that, go to the TNM News website at news.tnm.me and read the article that was posted. I think it may be the featured one from this afternoon. But that has a lot of implications for us. But to your point, Sam, we'll make sure and get that video posted for the online response corps, and you guys can do it. We've already posted. If you go look on all of the major social media channels, we've got that. So feel free to go share that post all over the place. But we'll get something in y'all's group on the on TNM social. Anyway, thank you for that question, Sam. Okay, Chris says, after seeing the premier of Ontario threaten to shut off power to 1.5 million Americans across the border, do you think Texans will start to understand why we don't want to tie into the U.S. national grid? Do I think they'll see? I don't know. We posted on social media about that yesterday, and some of the comments that we got were frankly pretty stupid. I mean, I can't look. I said it on social. Sometimes reading the comments on these things is like watching a monkey hump a football. I mean, it's just it is both horrifying and silly and funny at the same time, right? So some of these people, it's like, some of the comments, obviously a lot of the comments, people understood what we're saying here, which is, guys, this is why we have to fight really hard to not tie into the U.S. grid. We are sort of already tied in, but we don't want to entangle ourselves any deeper, which is what some of those people were proposing back, a little over a year ago. I think former state representative Lynn Stuckey was one of the people advocating for that sort of thing. Effectively, his position on it was no different than AOC's position. And what they always want to do is they want to, pound the crap out of us about Snowpocalypse 2021, right? Think about how long ago that was. And how we had problems there. And I'm not going to go rehash this, practically a 4-year-old argument over this nonsense. But the point here is that they just don't understand how it works. So, we literally had people comment on that, us talking about Doug Ford's threat, saying, because we had some high winds. Well, the power's out, and where I'm at right now. And I'm like, well, maybe you ought to stay off of Twitter and keep your phone on a battery, right? But they're like, well, the power's out. I was like, well, you realize it's got nothing to do with it, right? The wind came and blew Joe Bob's pine tree over your power lines, and you think that means that we should connect to the federal grid? This is the challenging part of dealing with some of these folks, right? But you can kind of tell of which political persuasion that person was, and no matter how we would try to educate them on it. So we just don't do that. We just let it ride. We chuckle and we move on because people who need to see understand. But, Chris, will it convince any more people? I don't know, because news is coming so fast right now. I think I heard Chris LaCivita say on some of the commentary ahead of the speech last night. He's talking about, we used to have news cycles that were 48 hours, it went to 24 hours. Now it's like every 20 minutes we've got a new news cycle because things are happening so fast. So Doug Ford's threat is going to probably fall on a lot of deaf ears or get buried, because look, Doug Ford's not going to be able to muster enough support in Canada to make that a reality. We're talking about the same Doug Ford who got up there and defended his brother Rob Ford. I don't know if you guys remember him or not, but he was mayor of Toronto. And he got caught smoking crack. And I mean, it was just, do yourself a favor if you don't know who Rob Ford is, and go look on YouTube for Rob Ford's greatest moments, and you will understand. And in one of those moments, you will see Doug Ford standing beside his brother, talking about how, it was all a undemocratic coup against a democratically elected mayor. And it's like, your brother totally smoked crack on video and then lied about it and tried to cover it up and all this crazy. I mean, Rob Ford was a character. And frankly, Rob Ford was far more entertaining than Doug Ford. Doug Ford has got he's got the charisma. I think, like Farage said of Van Rompuy, that he's got the charisma of a damp rag and a low-ranked bank clerk. So, I mean, but anyway, do I think it'll help? I have no idea. Okay, let's take a look at this one. Okay, this is from Andrea. This came in via email. Andrea says, it's comments, not a question. Says, it seems to me if Texans were aware of the total cluster that the Texas House is now, people would be screaming for Texit. I wonder which is worse, the state of the federal House or the Texas House. We really need to get this done. Andrea, I agree with you. I mean, I'm going to tell you right now. So we had some folks up at the Capitol. Your executive vice president, your chief of staff made a trip to the Capitol to follow up on conversations that we've been having with some of our allies, some of our Texas First Pledge signers. And I'm going to tell you, not just from their visit, but from the conversations that I've had with our folks. I remember the days when Strauss was speaker and things were not great. But in this particular legislature, it's as bad as I've ever seen it. I mean, it's as bad, if not worse. It's terrible. And so, we have no doubt, we could, we've got some bills that we can get behind. We've got no doubt that if we pick up the phone right now, we could get the referendum bill filed, but to what end? And that's really the question that we're having with these legislators. To what end? What good does it do us? While we could be, because the expectation would be for us to pile on the referendum bill everything we've got, where we've got some bills that do some things, that lock in some things for us to satisfy all those people who says, hey, we need to get more ready for independence. You've been heard. We've been working that and have been for quite some time to try to get us as close to independence as possible. But the expectation would be for us to pour on the gas on the referendum and suck all the oxygen out of those other things, and essentially have it die in the Texas House. And that's just stupid. I mean, that would just be stupid for us to do. And I will tell you, all of the advice that we're getting from the actual people on the ground in the Texas legislature right now is that we need to focus on those particular pieces of legislation that we can advance that will secure more independence for us, to get us ready for when we have the referendum, right? To put us even closer to independence. But in the meantime, we've got to seriously concentrate on knocking some of these obstructions out of the box. I mean, it's about as dysfunctional as you can get up there. I think the estimate is we're going to need probably about 10 or 20 more legislators in the House to make a big difference there. And so a lot of attention is being focused on the next election cycle right now, not just by us. I mean, this isn't just an assessment we're making, this is sort of the way that it's happening with a lot of things right now, because no one expects anything substantive to come out of the Texas legislature. I mean, they couldn't even get school choice right. I mean, that thing has got everybody divided right now. You've got, issues of state sovereignty that have a pretty good chance of getting across, that set up some real sort of mechanisms for us on the independence front moving forward, that get us closer to being functionally and operationally self-governing and independent. And so, that's some of the calculus we're dealing with, Andrea. And it's not like you and I are having the conversation, having it with everybody, but just in the just to say that we agree, right? It's a mess. We need Texas now more than ever. Like literally before this happened, you've got the Supreme Court essentially kicking back, some of the Trump spending cuts, right? And then you've got the Trump administration asking for a continuing resolution on the budget that will essentially continue to fund those things that they're cutting and slicing and dicing right now. If anyone thinks that we all may, to a certain extent, love the fact that Trump is taking a wrecking ball to the federal system, but if anybody thinks any of these changes are permanent, man, oh man, I mean, I'm telling you, you probably got hit by that rug pull crypto coin from Hawk to a girl, right? I mean, that's just how it works. So we got to do everything we can to get ready. We've had a bit of a reprieve, and we have to deal with the situation as it's handed to us, and that's what we have to do. More than ever, we have to be very prudent, and we have to be very committed, and we have to continue to move forward as quickly as we possibly can. Okay. That was heavy on the email, so I'm gonna take some more out of the chat. Okay, John says, what are the chances of doing an X/Twitter space with a few Texians? It's happening, right? We've already been in touch. We got some. It's happening. It's in the planning. We'll let you know when it's going to take place, but that is going down. I can remember, I think they did one, the last time they did one on Texas, on Texit or Texas Secession or whatever it was. I think the thing went for like 24 hours or something. I mean, it was nuts. It went for a very long time. Insane. So yeah, that's happening, John. So everybody stay tuned for that. If you're not following us on X, make sure you guys do. John, I know you are, but be sure you're doing it. Everyone else as well. Okay. Okay, Dusty asks, why are non-Texans so against Texas being its own country? What do they care? They don't live here. Are they afraid of Texas being successful? I'll tell you, I don't know from. It's a good question, Dusty. I can't rationalize it. It doesn't make a lot of sense. From what I can tell, and this just kind of a in the moment assessment, they generally divide into a few camps. You've got the nostalgists, right, who can't envision their U.S. flag having less than 50 stars, even though it didn't have 50 stars until like the 1950s, right? So, you know, they act like it's always been this way, like it's carved in stone, right? So you got these nostalgists who can't bear to think of the United States as anything but the way that it currently is, and we all know that that's a fantasy. You've got the others that are American nationalists, right? Who, just like we're Texas nationalists, we believe Texas is a nation. They're American nationalists. They don't believe that Texas is anything but just a subsection or subregion of this American nation. And that's just how they are. They will never support any state withdrawing from the union because they view it as a diminishment of the idea of the American nation. These are the ones that are pushing so hard for Canada to join they're calling for Canada to join the United States and Greenland to join the United States. They want it as big, as imperial as they possibly can get it. That's American nationalists, right? Which unfortunately they're the breed of nationalists that goes hand in hand with expansionists, and that's not generally a pretty situation, because I think that's what they accused Vladimir Putin of being, right? Anyway, long story short, so you've got that category of them, and then you've got these other people that just are against it because they're against it. But most of the times they're progressives. They don't understand why they're against it. They just know they hate Texas, and if Texas wants to do something, they just want to hate it. So, you know, if Texans decided tomorrow to declare oxygen, you know, the official element of Texas, those people would hold their breath until they passed out, right? So just so they wouldn't have to use it. You know, maybe that's a tactic. Note to our ledge team: can you see if we can get a legislator to file a bill calling on oxygen to be declared the official element of Texas? Because I want to see if the neo-Marxists everywhere else will hold their breath until they pass out. That would be lovely. See, plans. Anyway, Dusty, I really don't know the answer to that. That is more appropriately a question for them. I would just say that maybe they're just some people about as sharp as a bowling ball. Maybe they're just not that bright. But again, isn't that why we want to not be a part of them? Right? We can't be governed by the same people. How are we going to be governed by a government where it's people like that elect people to force a bunch of policies on us that we don't want? I mean, is that really what we want? I mean, do we want to still be in the same, political entity as them? I think not. Okay. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Hang on. Going back over to email. Yeah, this one's from Terry. This is an interesting question. And I'm just going to tell you, Terry, I'm not going to probably be able to dive into all of this tonight. But this is what it says. In his classic book, Human Scale, Kirkpatrick Sale argued that any population above 5 million was too large for effective representative government to take place. That's the population of my state of Alabama. So at more than 30 million people, wouldn't that population be better served if it were actually made up of about 6 totally independent states? There is growing talk now about how even many of the states are too big and need to undergo massive decentralization. Terry, thanks for the question. I know the book you're talking about, and I was introduced to Kirkpatrick Sale, oddly enough, through Dr. Thomas Naylor, who was a professor emeritus of economics at Duke University. He was the founder of the Second Vermont Republic. He basically went back to Vermont from Duke and said, I believe that Vermont should be an independent nation. And people thought he was absolutely nuts, right? But Dr. Naylor was one of the smartest guys on the issues of self-determination that I have ever met. I mean, he was just a phenomenal guy, and we literally had almost nothing in common other than sort of the basics. You know, we were both human males, you know, getting older, and you know, self-determination, and that's about it. I mean, you got to remember, his state is the one who elects Bernie Sanders as a senator. Although, interesting note, he despised Bernie Sanders, so it was really interesting. But anyway, Dr. Naylor's who introduced me to Kirkpatrick Sale, and Kirkpatrick. And I'm familiar with the book you're talking about, and I'm familiar with conceptually what he's talking about. It really is part of this debate at politics of scale, and I don't know that I would agree with Kirkpatrick Sale's assessment that, you know, the good number is 5 million. You know, I think that's debatable, and I think it's I don't think it's a number you can effectively set in stone. Okay. That being said, the question is about politics of scale, and how do you maintain political structures that represent that give people true representation in their institutions. In other words, how do you maintain a representative form of government, a constitutional republic, if the scale is too large? I believe that you can, but I also believe that you have to scale your institutions and scale your processes so that the people can be more represented. I think that the challenge comes when you have these populations that are more heterogeneous than homogeneous, right? So, or homogeneous. You have these populations that are effectively patchworks, hodgepodges. Then you get into this idea of civic nationalism versus what is effectively ethno-nationalism. That, like I said, that is a whole large debate. While I agree, sort of, right, kind of at the fundamental level, that politics is out of whack, representative government is out of whack, because politics of scale has not been represented. I don't know that I would agree with the finer points that Kirkpatrick Sale makes, especially the 5 million threshold. I don't know that I'm there yet. Could I be convinced? Maybe not, but I'm just not there yet. I don't think that's set in stone. I don't think I would call that a fundamental constant of the universe. So, but you know, respect to you and to Kirkpatrick Sale. I mean, you know, we need to all be talking more about these things. We're having that conversation in Texas right now surrounding the issues of the urban-rural divide in Texas, when 72% of the population is in about 30 to 35 counties. You know, that's where your elections are decided. And all of a sudden now, out of 254 counties, you've got 32 to 34 of them that really decide the outcome of all of these statewide elections, constitutional amendment elections. And you know, it's problematic, and it's something that needs to be addressed. But I firmly believe that Texas, the voters will not have the political will to address that situation until we get to the point of until we get to Texas and we start looking at what a post-Texas government is going to look like. Anyway, thank you for that question. Okay, let's get over here. Yeah, Billy says the U.S. is already too big for good governance. Why would you want to add to that? It's kind of where I'm at. You know, this is, and I'm sure this is probably has to do with what we were talking about with Greenland earlier, but you know, or maybe even the American nationalists, right? I think it's kind of an interesting discussion to have. You know, it's like, well, okay, it's like the people in Alberta, The people in Alberta are really, some of them are pushing really hard for Texas to, or for Alberta to leave Canada and become a state. And I'm like, guys, why? Why would you want to do that? I mean, you start looking at all of the things that we talk about. Like, you go to that question that I ask rooms all the time. Knowing everything you know about the federal government right now, would you vote to join? And invariably the answer is no. I mean, I have, occasionally one or two jokers that just want to, have fun at my expense, want to say yes, but they're always drowned out by people who say, no, I wouldn't join, and so I don't know that. I mean, I know they despise their relationship with Canada, but it's like I talk about with Scotland and, the Scottish National Party's insistence that Scottish independence be tied to rejoining the European Union. It's like, why would you fight to get your independence only to turn around and surrender it to somebody else? That was the thing about Catalonia, is they're like, hey, we want everyone to understand that this comes out, our referendum comes out on top. It's going to be stability. We're going to apply for membership in the EU. And it's like, guys, I mean, I get it, right? I understand what that debate is, and I understand about your relationship with the European Union, but why in the world would you want to free yourself from one entangling, this one political and economic entanglement, only to go over there and get entangled in another one? Why in the world would you surrender your sovereignty and your independence once you've gotten it? It makes no sense to me. So I'm kind of with you, Billy. Not kind of. I'm 100% with you. Why would anyone want to add to that? Okay, let's go take a look. Da, 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 da. Okay, let's see what we got here. Have you seen how hard Abbott has been pushing school choice? I wonder who padded his pockets. I wish he were that passionate about Texas independence. That's what you need to tell him. Look, we're not going to do like Jeff Yass and give him like $6 million. I mean, that, he got the largest political contribution in Texas election history from a school choice advocate. Okay. And I'm not getting mixed up in that debate, other than to say that parents should be able to choose how they educate their children. And I'm also aware of how the Texas Constitution approaches the issue of education. It was Mirabou Lamar who said that education is the genius of democracy. Okay. Genius guardian of democracy. Almost left out a word. Mirabou Lamar, the guy who is inarguably the father of Texas nationalism, is more commonly referred to as the father of Texas education, because he believed that it was impossible for a populace to be ignorant and free, right? And I think we can all agree with that. I think we all can agree to a certain extent that the idea of public education in Texas, being able to provide that education, has gotten way out of hand. Right? It's morphed into its own system, which is what happens when systems are left to their own devices. And you can use it's for the kids as the mantra to basically get any amount of funding that you want. And so, here we are at this situation where you've got public schools in a lot of places. Look, I'm a product of public schooling, right? I graduated from a small 3A. I had 80 people in my graduating class. My experience is going to be very different than someone in perhaps, just south of here at Port Arthur ISD, or north of me in Beaumont ISD, or back in my hometown in Longview ISD. My experience is going to be, and the experience between those are going to be different. And I think that is the problem. I think fundamentally that is the problem. Is that the experience is very different all the way throughout. And so I will tell you that I believe, the organization has not taken a position on this. But I do believe in that parents should have the right to choose how their children are educated. I think parents should have that choice. I think the government should stay out of that choice that parents have to educate their children. That being said, I think a lot of people can agree that the school issue and the school choice issue have become very, very political, and to the point that, um, we made a joke the other day about filing the Texas Independence Referendum Act and saying, that this would be the second session where the legislation is filed, and it is not the most controversial piece of legislation that is filed. I mean, what a after all this discussion about school choice for all these years, I mean, how does it come up to be such a massive lightning rod that has divided not just Republican versus Democrat, but or conservative versus liberal, but Republican versus Republican, and these legislators versus these others. I've seen hardcore conservative grassroots groups going after other, generally speaking, pro-liberty, pro-conservative legislators. I mean, I've not seen people ready to, have a West Side Story kind of knife fight over an issue like this in a while. This thing, we always talk about how the Texas issue cuts weird as far as who supports it and who doesn't. This one takes the cake, but it's not because there is an inherent disagreement on the school choice issue, because I think there is a kind of a natural divide line there over these issues. But I think it's probably because of the approach that was taken and the way the legislation is crafted. And so all I can say is this is the game of Greg Abbott's making, and whatever happens, happens. And I know a lot of people that are on both sides of this debate that are longtime friends that probably are not speaking to each other right now over this issue. Very sad to see. Okay, let's take a look here. We've got time for one last one, and it is a shorty. Okay, this is from Yena. I don't have much to say, so I'll just ask, what is your opinion on other smaller Texan liberation groups? Well, they don't exist. I mean, what is the point, right? I mean, if you're going to be an advocate for Texan independence, then come here. We're the largest, right? I mean, we're it. And, this idea that they're smaller, I mean, there was one Texian army. There was one Texian army. There was a Texian army. And then, the Texian, He-Man, Santa Ana Haters Club, and all this other kind of nonsense. There was one. And if you want to go win, then you come on, let's go win, right? But this idea that other small, look, if you want to have a eat, meet, greet, retreat and play, whatever, that's fine. Look, you guys can get together, do whatever. But if you want to do serious work to make Texas independence a reality, the door is open. It's open. All you got to do is step in. Okay. Yeah, man, oh man, you guys are very chatty tonight. I'm seeing lots of interesting comments, but unfortunately, my friends, we are out of time. Yeah, man, that hour goes by so fast, so fast. But alas, that is the way that it goes. I want to thank you guys so much for sending in your thoughtful questions and being here together tonight during the line in the sand day. It's I'm not going to reiterate everything I said at the very beginning, but it is a very important day, and it is for all of us, much like tomorrow is. Tomorrow is the anniversary of the fall of the Alamo. And, we'll obviously be posting some stuff. We won't be doing a live stream or anything. But I would ask each of you, if you haven't already, if what I said at the beginning resonated with you at all, make your decision, cross that line in the sand, and do so daily. But tomorrow, take time out and remember the sacrifice of those defenders of the Alamo. Remember, they gave their lives in the cause of Texas independence. It is a somber day tomorrow. It always is around our household, and not so in such a glum way. You know, it's a sad day to think about what happened at the Alamo, but it always does our heart good to remember that sacrifice and remind ourselves on March 6th to honor that sacrifice. So, you know, we every day we reenact metaphorically that crossing of the line in the sand, and then every day we work to honor the sacrifice that was made on March the 6th, because we do that enough, then it moves us closer to our April 21st, San Jacinto Day, the day that we win our independence. And I am very much looking forward to that day, and I'm looking forward to you being there as well, shoulder to shoulder, side by side, holding the line for Texas independence. And we're going to get there, folks. It's going to happen. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to wrap this bad boy up and go in there and get back to work making it happen. So with that, I will remind you, if you have not already done so, to go over and pledge your support, right? If you haven't already, head over to tnm.me/vote and pledge your support today. You know, join the call, you know, answer the call, join the rally. Let's make Texas a free and independent nation again. Let's honor that sacrifice that they made at the Alamo. Additionally, if you have not already done so, if you're already a registered supporter and haven't downloaded the TNM app, do so. Head over to tnm.me/app and download the mobile app. It is the only way that we're going to defeat big tech censorship and make sure that our message gets to you and that you can communicate with us. So head over there and download it. It's for Android and Apple, and we'd love for you to have it. Additionally, if you have an opportunity, we can use all the support we can get. You heard me talk about this focus that we're going to have to put. We've got a lot of work to do between now and the next major engagements. And, you know, after the meetings that I've had with these guys today, I know it's not going to be cheap. I heard one candidate talking about how it's going to cost them, you know, anywhere from $500,000 to $600,000 just to get in the game to run against one of these guys that is completely and totally anti-Texan. And that's just for one candidate. Imagine if you're like us and you're trying to prosecute a campaign statewide to get Texas independence. It's pretty gnarly. So head over to donate.tnm.me. $5, $10, $20, whatever you can give is much appreciated. And of course, as I say every week, as of last November or December, 100% of your donations goes toward membership credit. So not only if you make a donation, do you get, to go to, help independence, but you also get credit for memberships as well. And it goes dollar for dollar. So be sure to make that happen. And my friends, that is what we call a wrap. So I'm just going to, again, thank you so much for the opportunity to be with you tonight. I mean, the pleasure's all mine. I mean, think about how weird it would be if I just sat here and talked in front of a camera. Oh, wait a minute. There are people that do that. They're called social media influencers. That's not me. So I appreciate you being here week in and week out, always with thoughtful and thought-provoking questions that hopefully spark discussion, that hopefully motivate, inspire, whatever it is you're looking for. I hope you found it. And I hope you do spread the word. Be sure to, like and share this, because there are going to be people who catch it on the replay. Weirdly, as much as we do this on the live stream, we still have a lot of people that watch it on the replay, and they'll email their questions in, which is always kind of cool to me. But that being said, I've got to get back to work. So I will leave you with the words I leave you with every time we're together. They're not my words. They're the words of Sam Houston when he said that Texas will again lift its head and stand among the nations. I believe that time is now, and the question is, will you stand with her? Good night, everyone.